In this video, we're going to look at how to compute a confidence interval for a single population mean. So this question says, archaeologists have studied sizes of Egyptian skulls in an attempt to determine whether breeding occurred between different cultures. Listed below are the widths in millimeters of skulls from this time period. Construct a 95% confidence interval estimate of the mean skull width. So we don't know the mean skull width for all the skulls that were present around this time period. But we do have a sample, and we're going to use that sample to come up with an interval where we can say, I'm pretty sure that the skull widths from that time for the whole population would have been between this number and that number. So you can see they gave us some raw data here. So the first thing we're going to do is open that in Excel by clicking on the little blue icon here and saying Open in Excel. So here's the data right here, and I've added these other items here on the side. These would not have shown up in the data that you opened. So to get a confidence interval, the first thing we need to find is the point estimate. The point estimate is something we often call X bar. This is the mean of the sample. So if you remember from a previous section, when we want to find the mean of a sample, we go to formulas at the top, more functions, statistical, and the formula to find the mean is called average. So we're going to click on average, and then we're just going to go over and highlight the data that we were given, and then click OK. So this number right here, 133.675, is the mean skull width from this sample. As part of the steps we do here, we're also going to need the standard deviation of this sample. So from here, we can go to more functions, statistical, and all the way down to the S section, and we want this one, stdev.s. That means standard deviation from a sample. Click on that. And again, we're going to go highlight the values that we have here and click OK. So now we have that. Another thing we need is we need to know the sample size. The sample size is just how many values were here in the sample. So we can go to more functions, statistical, count. And again, we're just going to go highlight those values right there, and it's actually going to count up how many values there were total. So we click OK, so there were 8. We also can see down here that we're on line 8, right? So we could have also done it that way. Okay, so when we do a confidence interval, we need two things. We need the point estimate, that's the X bar, which we already found. That was this number right here. And we also need the margin of error, which is denoted by E. So the margin of error, we can use this formula in Excel when we are doing a confidence interval for a mean. Just note this formula would not work if you were doing a confidence interval for some other parameter like a proportion. This is only for a mean. So we're going to go formulas, more functions, statistical, and we're going to go down to confidence T. Confidence T. So the first thing that is being asked for here is the alpha. So the alpha value is 1 minus the level of confidence that we wanted as a decimal. So just to remind ourselves, in this question we were looking for a 95% confidence interval. So the alpha is going to be 1 minus 0.95. 1 minus 0.95. The standard deviation is what we found earlier. That was right here. So we can just click on that cell and Excel will bring that number in the cell right over for us. And then the size is the size of the sample that we had, which we had right here. So again, we could just click on it and bring that number over. So then we click OK. So this value right here is the margin of error. So now to do the confidence interval, all we have to do is calculate two numbers. So there's going to be a lower number, we call it the lower limit, and a higher number, which we call the upper limit. So for the lower limit, we're going to do the X bar, the sample mean, minus the margin of error. We can create that formula ourselves by starting with an equal sign, starting with the X bar, which was right here, click on that, and then minus margin of error, which was right here, and enter. So this is the lower limit of our confidence interval. And for the upper limit, it's the same thing, but we're going to have a plus instead of a minus. So equals X bar, and then plus margin of error, just like it is right here. Enter. So these are the two limits of our confidence interval. So let's see what we wanted to put in here. We wanted to round to 2 decimal places. So right now we have much more than 2 decimal places, but we can change that in Excel if we just highlight those two numbers and go to the Home tab at the top. And then these two buttons right here will let us either increase or decrease the number of decimals that we have. So we want to decrease this so we only have 2. So the lower limit is going to be 128.71, and the upper limit is going to be 134.64. Sorry, little mistake on my part. It wasn't 134.64, it was 138.64. So the correct interval is 128.71 to 138.64.